Help, it's the holidays. I know so many of us can be overwhelmed by the upcoming season and all the expectations that come along with it. So, for the next several weeks, we're going to be helping you out by encouraging you to focus on the real reason for the season and to create memories that will last a lifetime. Guys, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Courtney Doyle, and this is the place I am giving you permission to not have it all together. Welcome back to the show. I'm excited. Again, we have our resident guest. You've been on now, Beth, a few times. Our therapist, our sweet friend, Beth Alvarez. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I know, and you're always such a great wealth of knowledge. And so I love to have these episodes where you pop in and you set us straight on some of the crazy, or maybe it's just you set me straight, which I love. But we're talking about the holiday season as this series that I've been doing on help, moms crying out for help with their children is coming to an end. Or maybe it's not. I'm still thinking I may continue to do it because I think it's been so beneficial, not only
Yeah.
for me, but a lot of the listeners have responded really well with, I
Mhm.
have enjoyed this. And the vulnerability of the moms that have
Mhm.
shared their stories, I think is just so important and
Mhm.
impactful. But it's the holidays, Beth. And that
There we
brings,
go.
yeah, it
Mhm.
brings a whole new set of challenges in so many ways. And so I want to jump in right there. The holiday season can be so difficult.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you feel this way, but I remember there being a greater expanse of time between like Halloween and Christmas. It just felt longer as a younger person. And now it's almost like Halloween's over and Christmas is tomorrow. Like,
Mhm.
welcome to the rush of the season. And so I want to jump right in about moms who are already feeling this pressure
Mhm.
and this overwhelmed feeling of help. The
Mhm.
holidays are among us. Let's
Mhm.
just start with, how do we temper ourselves leading
Mhm.
into holidays?
Okay. It's interesting that you said that it feels like that time space is shorter because we weren't inundated the way that we are these days. We are hit. I walk into a pharmacy and I'm hit with, I feel like it's Easter's around the corner on an aisle. And it's just, can I just they have not heard of being in the present moment. And so you really are
Mm,
inundated. And so it robs you of this time and space. It feels like, okay, Halloween was over and knock that off the shelf and here we go. And
yeah.
it really puts us all in that space. And then Christmas commercials are already on. So anyway, I think the holidays, although they are so wonderful, can be very difficult for a variety of reasons. And one of the things that I love to sit and think about is, and I've talked about this on the show before, when you know your core values, it will guide you as a compass, like a
Mhm.
compass. So if I decide, you know what, this holiday season, I really want peace, my decisions and how I set up looking at the holidays are going to be very different than if I say, this holiday season, I just want fun.
Mm.
So I tell people, like, sit with your core values. How do you want to show up? What are you looking for? What value do you want to lead you? And remember, you have a blank canvas for, okay, holidays 2024. What are we going to put on that blank canvas or puzzle box, if you will, to create what fits for us? And part of that too is getting out of what the culture says you need to do,
Mm.
to take a deep breath. Oftentimes, if we wait until after the holidays, I our offices are usually more crowded after the holiday season because people are shaken by a lot of different family events. And oftentimes it's nothing new. They just fell into the same patterns. They went back to what's familiar and they did it again. And they start getting frustrated or disillusioned or start blaming. And really, some of those things that were there that were so frustrating could have been avoided had they
Mhm.
thought, did you even want to participate? Is that something what you want to do? And oftentimes the answer would have been no. And this is not easy. I hear this often. These conversations have already started in my office. And a lot of times I'm encouraging people to give themselves permission to do something different
Mm,
and give yourself a lot of self compassion as you navigate that because it's going to feel unfamiliar, which oftentimes feels uncomfortable. We get worried about what people will think, or we don't want to hurt people's feelings. And look, disappointment is part of life. And the quicker that you can stand and, you know what, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do for me and my family and talk about it, negotiate with your family what we're going to do. And hey, we'll let you know, clear as kind. So tell people, but take the burden off of making sure they feel okay about it
mm.
because they're okay. It is okay for them to feel disappointed.
Yeah,
That's love. We wanted y'all
yeah.
to be here. I'm sorry you can't make it. But I was thinking about this earlier. I don't see Jesus trying to talk people out of their feelings.
Such a good point.
He just came in and he was compassionate and he spoke truth to them, but he let that peace be. And
Yeah.
I have this diagram, what is my responsibility and what is not my responsibility. And it's okay for other people to be disappointed or hurt. All you can do is be clear and be kind about
Mhm.
it and be
That's a
grateful.
great that's great advice, and the giving yourself permission to do something different. You
Mhm.
and I have talked about that personally, and it was really difficult for me to do something different during the holidays many years ago because there were specific expectations
Yeah.
and there were feelings involved. And so, in order for my family, our core family, to be different, of course, hurt other family members' feelings. And it, like you just said, it was disappointing to them. But at the same time, we had to focus on what makes us better
Mhm.
during this time and what makes this more enjoyable because this what we've been doing is not enjoyable. And you know this about us. I don't know if the listeners know, but Scott's birthday is December 25th. And so going all the way back to when we first moved out of state, we tried so hard with these 6 little kids to drive
Mhm.
back and forth between states during this precious time frame of December 23rd, 24th, 25th. And we're dragging these kids around for Christmas and it don't open that. Oh, you can't open that and you can't bring that because now we're traveling with this. And just so much work went into
You are exhausted.
making yes. And then I would look over at my husband on his birthday, driving us to or from, exhausted, and it was like there was no time to celebrate him at all. He just got forgotten, and it just was too much, and there were other circumstances in our lives that finally pushed us to do something very different, and that was
Mhm.
we started traveling.
Mhm. Mhm.
Just the core group of us started traveling on the holidays, and a big part of that was, of course, centered around removing us from the physical location of Texas because of the situation with our son.
Right.
And it was really about selfishly, it was about me. It was hard for me to be in the same physical
Mhm.
location that knowing that he was in and I couldn't do anything
Mhm.
about the situation. And the holidays exasperated that for me. And I know that it does for many. And
Mhm.
so I want to jump into that as well. Grief is not just at the loss of a loved one, a passing. Grief has so many definitions. And
Right.
so let's talk about that. We're going into the holiday season, and you may be grieving. Maybe it is the passing of someone
Mm.
over this past year. Maybe it's the loss of a relationship
Mhm.
or a job loss, or just maybe family has moved further away geographically and it just doesn't work out that y'all can all be together. Let's talk
Mhm.
about how do we when we feel that hole in our hearts, when we know that there's a loss, there's an absence of whatever it may be, how do we navigate that and not let it rob us completely of the joy that the season can bring?
Mhm. First of all, I'm going to disagree with you when you say that you were selfish for beginning to travel during that time because I'm thinking about it. Actually, you knew what you needed during that time.
Mhm.
And I know you created memories and experiences, and that may have been so that you could enjoy the holiday season. Or sometimes, I'm going to be really honest, sometimes we're getting through a holiday season. Grieving is loving. So when you are grieving, you're letting the loss of this person or a relationship, or you've got feelings around a different type of loss, like you mentioned, like a job, knowing that those feelings are all okay and that you're in process. Grieving is a process that takes time. You can't really rush grief. And you may not know at any given moment what you need. For example, people will be celebrating Christmases or holidays that are a first without someone they dearly loved. And I call that season as emotional ICU, depending on how fresh it is. It may be we need to really tone things back. It may be I need to travel. I need to get out of here. And it's okay not to know. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to do things differently. And so giving yourself a lot of self acceptance that I am going through this season right now. You may not feel like celebrating. Oftentimes we don't when we're grieving. And there, if circumstances are like if unsettled, like you're not sure what other people are going to do, if a relationship is strained. I know several people who have a prodigal son or daughter, and that's just strained. And surrendering the outcome, showing up how you would authentically show up with boundaries, but dialoguing, talking about expectations, but surrendering the outcome really, really helps because then you're not held to an expectation. It's not a this
Mhm.
has to happen. I'm going to be okay if this happens or not, and I'm going to see what occurs. People change their minds a lot. It's really just stepping back and saying, what do I need? And allowing yourself to feel and know that it's a process. And no, I'm not going to be in this season next year,
Mm.
but that maybe I need to do things really different this
Yes.
year as I'm grieving and I've experienced this loss. Your body takes a toll when you are going through grief. It
Mhm.
is, you feel it, just being really kind to yourself. And really, I mean, it's not selfish to say,
Yeah.
I need to do things different. I need to care for myself. Yes, I want to be outwardly focused as well, but the problem that I run into with people is we don't consider ourselves and we
Mm.
try to keep doing things as we've always done them.
Mm.
And then we're so exhausted or burned out by the end of it, like you said, that we can't even enjoy it.
Mhm.
I was
Mm.
thinking today, it is not a coincidence that Thanksgiving falls right before Christmas
Mhm.
because I feel like when we can go into these holiday seasons just from a place of thankfulness, not that we don't want things to be different, because we do, but it sets our hearts in a little better place.
Mhm.
And then when there's a job loss, let's just say that you can't do things like you've done them
Yeah.
before. It's crazy to think about, but the stories that I've heard when that's occurred and people pull way back and gifts are minimal, people tend to have these nuggets of what's so good about that. I
Mhm.
remember being a young mom, and there was a mom who told us the story that her husband had lost his job and they were not buying gifts, they weren't doing anything new that year. And so she had perused her house and she had found things that she thought each one of her kids would be able to cherish. And she wrapped those up and gave them to them before she died. But she recalls, she said it was their best Christmas ever. It was the most
Mhm.
meaningful. It was the slowest. They could be intentional for what was really the season, what this was about. and how they wanted to celebrate. And of course, she was concerned and worried, but she knew too, they don't really need all those other
Mhm.
things. This is
Mhm.
really what filled their heart with a want from their parents.
I love that.
And it was really great to hear.
Mhm. The meaning behind it is
Hmm.
was more valuable than the
Hmm.
busyness of probably what had been done in previous years of shopping and buying things that nobody really needs. Listening to you talk about that, and you had said earlier, clear is kind. I think it's also it's okay to even if the family isn't going to understand, we have to give ourselves permission to be where we are
Yes.
personally and not expect everybody else to understand and be okay that they don't understand. But then, like you said, communicate clearly. I'm not great or I'm not feeling good in this season. And this is how we're going to do things. And this is why we're doing things differently. And I'm
Hmm.
sorry that you may not understand that, but this is what's best and healthiest for me and for us at this time. I had to have that conversation with my own father because when we were all together as a family, and especially in the absence of our son, my dad wanted to talk about it
Right.
all the time. And he wanted to ask questions. And look, my daddy's 90 now. And so I've given him lots of grace on his own concern and his worries and things like that. But at the same time, I've had to set very clear boundaries of, hey, we are not going to talk about this
Right.
the whole time that we're together. And in the event you do want to talk about it, that's going to be my cue that we're leaving
Mhm.
and set that boundary. And he didn't
Yeah.
love it because he has this undivided attention when we're together that he can
Right.
ask questions and try to give advice. And I didn't need or
Right.
want that advice.
And how honoring for yourself and for him
Hmm.
to be able to say, I need to not talk about it. And I hear you. One thing with the clearest kind, we can give a lot of empathy. I know you really want to talk about this. It is so difficult for me. I need to not talk about it while I'm here with you. And I'm sorry that this is difficult. There's a way to establish some boundaries that are very kind. And what I love that you just demonstrated is you knew your deal breaker. Okay. If you have to continue talking about it, then I'm going to leave. I was working with somebody a couple of weeks ago and she was talking about some, you go back into ground zero, childhood family stuff when you
Hmm.
all get back together. And we so often fall into different roles when we were children. It's so funny. I have two older sisters, and we get together, and suddenly I am the little sister who is giving her advice, and I love them dearly, and I know, but it cracks me up because here I'm in this role again. But
Yeah. You've described that with me before. I'm so glad that you went there because I was actually about to bring this up. So our brains are on the same wavelength, which is both exciting and
yeah,
terrifying because I know you personally. So you and I could squirrel very quickly. But you have described that to me. Sometimes we walk into these family scenarios and everybody puts their banner on of who they were when that family unit was whole before marriages, before whatever identity you have become as an adult. And so, what you just said, I'm also the baby of the family. So, inevitably, when we're all together, all the
mhm,
original siblings of my
mhm,
parents, I put on that banner. Big sister
mhm,
puts on her banner.
mhm.
I have a sister that had some struggles in the past and who has been healthy for many, many years. But
Yes.
it's very interesting to me because oftentimes that banner gets placed on her.
Yeah.
She doesn't
Yeah.
walk in saying, this is me, or I was the wild child, or whatever
Right.
little jokes that my family wants to
Mhm,
make,
mhm.
identifying her
Right.
in our core group of four, but it gets placed on her. So let's talk about that.
So think about it. When you decide you're going to do something different, you are stepping out of that role.
Mhm.
You are like actually finally saying, I'm an adult and I can do things differently. I don't have to be in this role that I was in. It worked for me then, but it's not what I'm going to carry all the time. And when you're just communicating with people, what you want and what you need. And I had somebody saying, I don't want to walk in and they're giving me advice and telling me how to fix things.
Mm.
Tell them. How can you
Yep.
tell them that? Just communicate it. And then,
Mhm.
like you said, if they can't respect that, then you can establish a boundary and, you have layers of boundaries. Okay. If you can't stop talking about it, I may need to leave. Or sometimes we discuss, if Uncle Joe's there and yeah, I don't know, and Uncle Joe, we just say, but if Uncle Joe's
Yeah.
there and he's drinking too much and he wants to make wise cracks or he's tearing somebody down, okay, we're going to leave
Mhm.
and set up some expectations
Mhm.
if you are gathering and for how things can be different.
When you're raising teenagers and you give your kid they start venturing outside of the nest, maybe in high school or whatever, and you're like, "Hey, look, if you're at this party or you're at this friend's house and you need me, what's the word? You're gonna text me a word and I'm gonna know." We just did it with Hamilton the other day. He was going somewhere and I said, "Hey," he didn't have a phone. And I said, "If you need me to come pick you up, ask a friend to borrow their phone and text me the
Mhm,
word pizza." And
mhm,
then if they see that you text mom pizza or your mom pizza, they're
mhm,
gonna be like, "Oh, what's that? Oh, that's what I wanted to eat." But I'm
mhm,
gonna know that's
mhm,
show up and I'll be there within 15 minutes.
mhm.
And so we've always had these safe words with our kids. And we actually created a safe word for our family unit.
Good.
And so when we go to any large family gatherings as a unit,
For her.
and I'm exposing myself if anybody, and I'm not gonna say what it is.
Don't tell
Um,
them.
if my family members are listening, but we have there's the 8 of us, right? The Doyle group, we
Yes.
have a certain thing that we
Mhm,
do, and it doesn't mean just with family. It could be any large gathering that we're in as a unit,
mhm, mhm.
and if anybody feels uncomfortable, if
Yes.
anybody is in a conversation that they don't wanna be in, if
Mhm.
anybody is ready to go, we have a word,
Yeah,
and
and you know what
it
I love
goes out
about
to
that?
everybody,
Yep.
and we
Yes.
honor it. I mean, we don't
Yes.
pack it up and leave, but it's like somebody needs to intervene. So we've been in situations where maybe somebody has cornered one of the kids in love, not in an
Right,
ugly manner,
right,
but maybe
right.
they were questioning them about, let's say, Christian or something like that, and they don't feel safe or comfortable answering
Mhm.
those questions. They'll
Right.
just shoot that text message. And that means come intervene, break up this
Yes.
conversation or whatever. And
Yes.
so I would suggest that for
Yes.
families, when you're
Yes.
going somewhere,
Yes.
come up with a sign, come up with a word or whatever it may be that lets other family members know. Because, like you said,
Yes.
when we step into those roles as adults,
Mhm.
and maybe you go to your husband's house or his family's house, and you end up in a conversation with Aunt whoever, it
Mhm.
to have that husband come in and intervene and break that conversation up
Yes.
or wife or
Yes.
whatever,
Yes.
it's a great way to stay communicating
Mhm.
amongst
Mhm.
your core family of
Mhm.
how you're doing in those situations, especially if there is some loss or some grief that's
Yes.
attached to
Yes.
it. Look, we're all grieving
Yes.
something going into the
Yes.
holidays. It's
Yes.
just
Yes.
at what level is it that we're
Right.
at and how fresh it is.
Mhm. I love that, Courtney. It's so protective of your family. And I just love that you have set that up. That's a great example. Here, it's not about being against other people. It's
No.
about protecting your family and being tender and sensitive to when somebody might feel uncomfortable. And that's important.
Mhm. Mhm. It's been good, and it's been fun, and we do it all the time now. We could be
Mhm.
an HEB
Yeah.
as a group, and it doesn't even have to be all 8 of us, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's we make the
Yeah.
again, I'm not sharing it because I'm not
Yeah.
exposing
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
because God forbid I'm in a group with the people who are
Yeah.
listening and we have our family thing and people are gonna be like,
Yeah.
"We the Doyles are trying to escape. We know what y'all are doing."
Well,
Um,
you can always blame it on a, gastrointestinal issue or something like that.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So let's talk about this. Like you said earlier, enormous pressure now
Yeah.
because like you walk in anywhere and it's put your Christmas tree up. I actually told Scott yesterday, I said, if we don't have the Christmas tree up tomorrow, should Christmas even happen? And because I love to decorate. So I'm not trying to decorate my house because of any other reason other than the process of decorating brings me such joy. And I have mentioned this on the podcast before. If you were like, I need to get in a bath, in a bubble bath, and read a book with a glass of wine, that is how I see you raising your hand. That's how my brain
Okay.
shuts down. Everybody has
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
thing that they can
Yeah.
do that quiets the noise in their brain. Oddly enough for me, it's decorating. So
Mhm.
that's why I have done it to, I would say, a little bit of an extreme level for quite some time. People question me all the time about
It's
being a
life-giving to
Christian.
you. It's
It
life-giving to you.
absolutely is.
So
And so Halloween, for instance, I'm going to back up. We're recording this just days after Halloween. I have had
mhm.
lots of questions about how can you be a Christian and celebrate Halloween? And I want to say, I'm not celebrating Halloween. I'm not celebrating the hallowed spirits and all this other stuff. But decorating for Halloween became an outlet for me in the month of October because
Mhm.
the month of October
Yeah.
has been harder versus easier for many years
Yeah.
because of it being Christian's birthday and
Yeah.
because of there being
Yeah.
so many
Yeah.
years that I was not able to celebrate with him. And it was a deep grief and a deep loss. And so it kept my mind busy.
Mhm.
And then it just grew legs and became its
Mhm.
own thing. And I
Well, and
enjoy the decorating
for
process.
you to explain the reason behind it, it almost became like a ritual for you. It's something, and it is life-giving, and that's what's important
Mhm.
for you. I am not a decorator for children, just not a decorator. But for you, that piece of it
Yeah.
is so good for you.
It's like therapy. It really is. I do have you for therapy, which I greatly love and I absolutely condone. But in addition to my actual therapist, the decorating process
That's
is
great.
healing for me.
That's so
It
great. Yes.
quiets the noise
Yeah.
in my head. I can
And it
put
was
on worship music.
purposeful.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
purposeful for you.
Mhm.
So you bring out the Halloween and it's yay. Girl, I
I
support
am.
you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to make sure Scott knows that I have validation that I
Yes.
can put up a
Yes.
tree.
Yes.
But that's the thing.
Society.
Not it's society says do it now, do it big. There's these expectations of what your home should look like, the gift expectations. I mean, give me a break. I remember my kids being younger and when you and I were younger and we sat around the Christmas tree and we opened presents, we could not then immediately snap a picture and share it on social media of,
Right.
oh, look what I received. And
Right.
so that is so dangerous. How do we teach our kids be mindful
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
not everybody is in the same financial situation, or maybe they are, and they
Mhm.
just weren't part of the lucky few that were able
Mhm.
to score that great item?
Mhm. I think when you talk about how do we quiet the noise,
Hmm.
for a lot of people, unplugging is really great.
Mm.
And that determining, okay, what do I really want to put out there? And talking to your kids, you're modeling this so well because you're just having open and authentic conversations with your own kids and coloring things out. And there's no reason you can't say, hey, let this time that we're together doing this be a time for our family. And I know kids are going to do what ultimately they're going to do.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to have the conversations. And for us, it's not the reason we celebrate. And we've had to really back up. And sometimes it was reasons because things were tighter. We're in a season where we're paying for two in college and we're in a situation. But I remember when we're talking about society, what do I want to participate in?
Hmm.
Because not everything fits me. And so I don't need to do everything. And I don't lie, like decorating does not come easy for me. So my
Hmm.
family, we got to help mom. I don't know why. It's hard, but it's just not my thing. So the first year I remember, oh my gosh, years ago that I thought, I'm not doing Christmas cards this year.
Yeah.
And we had been through a lot. There were a lot of different things were in my mind and on my plate, and I just was like, I'm not doing it. And talk about taking a step that felt unfamiliar. It just felt like the
Mhm.
family was like, "Where's your card?" and "Where's it?"
Yeah, you're falling apart
And I
if you
would
don't do
walk,
Christmas
and I
cards.
would walk into people's houses with the Christmas card everywhere, and then I never really wanted to go back. I've done a couple, but it was just something that became that's not where I want a lot of my energy to go to.
Mhm.
during the holiday season. And just deciding what fits me and my values to participate in was really helpful.
Mhm.
And you can do that year by year. Okay, what are we doing this year? What are we doing differently? We've gotten to that place where I'd rather spend money on memories
Yeah.
and experiences than
Mm.
gifts. I
Mhm.
think they don't have a lot of needs. They may say different, but I don't think they have a
Yeah.
lot of needs. And I want to give them something they want, but I would rather give them the gift of an experience, big
Yeah.
or small, with our family. And when I want to love people well in this season, I remember thinking about who do I want to surround myself with? I
Mm.
want to drop the shoulds
Yeah.
and stop shitting on myself and
Yeah.
decide what fits for me and
Right.
my family. And it's sometimes it's this hard because if you're married or you're adult children, whatever, you've got to negotiate some things.
Mhm.
And one thing that I hear, and I really want to encourage moms who have adult sons or daughters and they're married now and they're
Mhm.
trying to figure out what they're doing or they've had kids. And I just want to encourage those moms. Just listen to what your adult son or daughter and their family is trying to figure out. Remember, they've come out of your circle and your bubble
Mhm.
and they're creating their own. And I love to say, let them know we're here. However, you want us to be involved, we would love to see you. Let us know what works. I just find that simplicity without demands, without all the expectations, there is something that shifts those relationships where it is so much more secure. They really appreciate that you recognize they are now trying to create their own circle
Mhm.
and they're figuring out how they're going to do it. And
Yeah.
then if you need to, call your friends and boo-hoo that whatever you've got to do, and then figure out
Mhm.
what you need to do for your holidays. But I think just being respectful for the process that they're trying to create, their family and their
Yeah.
experience, and seeing what are they going to do? How are they going to
Yeah.
do this? And everybody's trying to navigate it.
Mhm. I think a lot of family conflict happens when a couple gets married and now you've got it's not that the 2 now, the newlyweds or the couple that has created their own unit, it's not that they're trying to be disrespectful, but now you've got 2 other moms, her mom and his mom, that are
Mhm.
pulling in opposite directions and
Yeah.
making demands. And I'm speaking to this from my own personal situation. My mom very much had boundaries around our holidays, and
Mhm.
she wanted them the way she wanted them. This is when I'm doing it. There was no leeway. There was no movement for my mom, and it was like
Flexibility.
everybody
Yeah.
walked on eggshells a little bit
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
trying to make sure that we were all able and available. And it wasn't until we started having some conversations and us moving out of state that I was like, "Hey, that
Mhm.
doesn't work anymore because we're not
Right.
in state anymore,
Mhm.
and I've gotta figure out a way now when I travel back to honor 2 sets of parents, Scott's
Right.
mom and my mom." And so it was that forced separation gave better conversation. And
Mhm.
so I've tried to tell my kids now as they get older, I'm already setting them up for and I think setting myself up, right?
Mhm.
Like, they
Right.
are gonna be their own people. They are gonna have their
Mhm.
own families. I don't want my children feeling like they have to be at grandma's house on Christmas Eve when Christmas Eve oftentimes is just really sacred with little ones. You're preparing for Santa
Mhm.
Claus to come or whatever. I don't
Mhm.
need them to be at my
Mhm.
house making mom feel good
Mhm.
about it being Christmas. And because we have so many, Scott
Mhm.
and I've talked about it. I'm like, they are gonna have 6 other families. Like, we're a lot of people, and that's gonna be a lot of people feeling like they need to be tended to in the holiday, and
Mhm.
I don't wanna be a stumbling block in
Mhm.
the middle of that for my kids. So what
Mhm.
does it look like if we just and I've gotten this advice from other people with big families. What if we just remove that burden and say, "Hey,
Mhm.
you know what?
Mhm.
This family,
Mhm.
as a unit, the 6 of us I'm sorry, the 8 of us, the 6 of y'all, we're gonna do Christmas with your families at some just random time." No?
You're giving them such a gift. You're giving them such a tremendous gift. And what I find is then they have the freedom to come back
Yeah.
however they need to. And you've
Mhm.
opened
Mhm.
that channel because you have really surrendered them. And so
Mhm.
you figure out what you need to do what works for your family. And
Yeah.
it's a tremendous gift. It is a sign of emotionally healthy parenting.
Mm.
So emotionally healthy adult can do that. And
Yeah.
so good for
Yeah,
you.
and not get your
Right,
feelings hurt. Chandler's a nurse, so, like, this
right,
Christmas, she works for
right,
the Christmas
right,
holiday. So
right.
we're gonna have to shift, and I'm okay with I'm not married to the 24th and the
Mhm,
25th being the
mhm.
only time we can celebrate
Right,
Christmas and celebrate our family together because that's what it's
right,
about.
right.
This isn't about Christmas as far
Mhm,
as the gifts and the decorations and
mhm,
everything else, and I would venture to say, and this may sound a little harsh, but if the only time you're sitting down around a table with your loved ones is
mhm,
at Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it's
mhm.
the only time you're
Right,
celebrating your family, you have bigger issues
right.
than the holiday season. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's one thing if you have family, like we have family that lives far, so we don't get
Sure.
to see them as often. If they're traveling for the holidays, you want to honor that. But I'm just talking about if you are in a family dynamic and
Yeah.
y'all are pretty close proximity to each other, and the only
Mhm,
time you are sitting down as a family unit is once a
mhm,
year around a very stressful season anyway, I
mhm,
would venture to say you need to reevaluate
mhm,
your
mhm.
family dynamic. You should be doing that. This should not be like the end all be all of celebrating your family unit. This should be something
Right.
you're doing often, and it just happens to be another family dinner that you're having. Am I fair
Mhm.
to say that?
Yeah, there's so many different dynamics in families. So it just depends it depends what the dynamics are and what
Mhm,
hard lines are being drawn. And
mhm.
sometimes those become more flexible around the holiday season.
Yeah.
Because they feel we all want to be together for Christmas, that they'll bend those more. But it just
Mhm.
depends. But
Yeah.
even if that's the case, I'd say it's worth working on
Yeah.
and seeing what's there. I just know
Mhm.
too, the holidays bring in so many other issues that can complicate relationships and dynamics. There's more drinking during that time, there's more partying during that time, and that interferes with the
Yeah.
time spent with others. So there's just so many different things that can come in.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's just being very clear with how you're going to show up. And I love the examples that you've made about just making a safe space for your family. And even as they grow older, what they're going to do.
Mhm.
You're modeling it by giving them permission right now.
Mhm. That's the hope. That's the hope
Mhm.
is that we make it safe, we make it fun, we make it enjoyable. And that leads me to my next question that I'm going to be asking everybody that I'm talking to about the holiday season. And that's also finding what kind of tradition that you can create that is special to your family unit. And
Mhm.
we have done that over the years, just different things. And now, instead of my kids looking forward to, let's say, that specific day of Christmas, they're like, "Hey,
Mhm.
when are we having?" The first thing they're going to ask in November is, "Hey, mom, here's the dates that I work. When are we going to do our gingerbread competition? When are we doing painting of the
Mhm.
ornaments?" And it's the traditions,
Mhm.
it's the things like that that we've done
Mhm.
as a family unit that
Mhm.
I feel are trumping
Mhm.
the other stuff. And we
Right,
can
right.
find dates that work for us. And so does your family have any sort of tradition that it could be a meal, a specific meal that like, hey, we are not having Thanksgiving and Christmas without this dish. Do you have a
Mhm.
tradition that you've created for your family that you can share with us?
We do. We love Christmas morning, like brunch. And so we do a sausage and grits casserole, and then I do homemade cinnamon rolls. But
Mm.
my family doesn't really eat cinnamon rolls. So I end up with this big platter of cinnamon rolls. But
When you make them this year, you call us.
we'll go
Oh,
the
we're
door she
coming.
comes. But the other thing we just love to do, and it's so simple. And when my youngest daughter was probably like 5. She loved the lights, and we would get hot chocolate, and I had my grandmother's recipe of hot chocolate mix, and we'd get hot chocolate and go look at the lights, and every year she was like, "Can we put lights on our house? Can we put lights on our house?" And I never did and never did, and so about 3 years ago, I started putting lights in the house, and I don't think I need to do anything else. Like, it has just made our family love our house that there are lights on the outside of our house. And so I feel like
Oh,
we've arrived, and so I can do that in the Christmas tree, and that's what they love.
look at you decorating and you didn't even know it.
I know. I used to tell her, I was like, "They're on the outside of the house, you can't see them anyway."
Yeah, but there is a little sparkle through the
There
windows
is
that
a
you see.
sparkle. She loves
Yeah.
it. We all love it, so we're gonna do our Christmas lights on the outside of our house.
I love that. I love that. Beth, let's take it back to what the focus is. The holidays can be hard. Like you
Mhm.
said, it can exasperate family dynamics. It can exasperate grief or loss.
Mm.
But just share with me a word of encouragement for the listeners of really, truly, what is this season about?
It's so crazy that you just asked me that because I was walking this morning on this trail and there were just so many ducks flying in and out of this pond. And I stopped and it was a beautiful morning and the sun rose through the clouds. And for some reason, I just said, Lord, I'm so glad you always had your eye on me and that you have made me be able to see you and recognize you. And I'm just so thankful. This is not our home. This is not always where hope resides, but we are going to a place with tremendous hope for those that are in deep anguish for what they've lost or for what they're experiencing. We have so much tremendous hope, the hope of heaven. That is why I always say Christmas wouldn't be a big deal if it weren't for Easter.
Hmm.
And we have just tremendous hope. This is a passageway getting to where our true home, our true hope resides, and where all things are known, and where those things where there were losses, he gets to tell the story of how he's used them, what he's worked in us, what was on the other side there. So I don't know. There was a more peppy step uh, as I walked, just reminding myself there's a lot of brokenness in this world.
Yeah.
There is a lot of people who are so anxious and so fearful. And so it just is very anchoring to me to say, this is not where it all is. And
Hmm.
I want to walk by faith. I want to trust him. What you and I talked about, just living surrendered, surrender the outcome and know that he's with me, but that there is tremendous hope on the other side of this.
Mm, yeah. Thank God for that. It's
Mhm.
interesting that's what you shared because that's exactly what the pastor taught on today
Oh,
is hope and
mhm.
that we should be hope carriers as well and
Mhm.
carry that hope out into the world. And that hope is Jesus Christ
Yes,
and eternity with him.
yes,
And
yeah.
at the beginning of this episode, you made a mention of paint your own canvas and the visual and the creative side of me can envision that it doesn't matter if the canvas has already been painted. You can use white paint. I don't know if you know this, but
Yes.
as a painter, you can use
Mhm.
white paint and you can start any canvas over. And so I think that's a great visual for us going into this
Mhm.
season of start
Mhm.
with that blank canvas.
Mhm.
If it's dark, if it's ugly, if it's messy from this past year, get some white, paint that canvas over visually in
Yes.
your mind and choose what
Yes.
do the next 2 months look like for me personally, for my relationships that are
Mhm.
closest to me and my immediate family. And if that looks like peace, if that looks like kindness, if that looks like hope, if that looks like joy, claim that
Mhm.
and keep that with you. And when the anxiety comes, when the rush comes, when the expectations come, remind yourself, what am I painting here
Right.
for my family and what are they going to remember? And I think hope is a great starting place
Yes.
for that new
Yes.
canvas.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Give yourself permission. And when things happen and you do them one way and you're like, "Oh, I won't do that next year." That's
Yeah.
okay too. That's okay
Take
too. There's great
take
lessons in
notes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
Oh, thank
wonderful.
you.
I appreciate your time as always. Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much for having me.
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask you, you talked about sausage grits and you talked about your grandmother's hot chocolate recipe. And so I'm also asking if you're willing to
Yes.
share one of those recipes,
Yes.
I'm going to tag that in the show notes as well
Oh, so
as a little
fun. I'll give it
gift
to you.
to the listeners.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yes, I'd be happy to.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Beth. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks so much for listening to The Mom Show with Courtney Doyle. Remember to check the show notes for any links, books, or resources that are mentioned in each episode. We want to be sure this blesses other mothers, and in order to do this, if you're listening via podcast, be sure that you like and share. If you could write a review, that would be fantastic. It helps us get in front of other moms. If you're watching via YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button. This way, you won't ever miss an episode. We want to make sure that we increase our reach to other mothers who need a little encouragement, a community, and a whole lot of Jesus. We're so glad you're here.